Hello, everyone. It's Pittsburgh Pat, and we're here again with Ryan Doyle of the Verdigree Table. How are you, Ryan?
I'm doing great this morning. How you feeling?
Good. This is our talk of shame, we called it last week. So we play on Tuesday nights and we talk on Wednesday mornings. And so I'll get this out as soon as I can. But yeah, so the session was from September 17th, and we were doing 5e with mostly new rules from the brand new book. Player's Handbook came out. And actually, yesterday, I think you could actually buy it online. Not this version. This is the one that's only sold in the game stores, right?
Yeah, we are cool and special and bought it at our friendly local neighborhood game shop 2 weeks early. But yesterday was the official release date, which it didn't really feel like much. It kind of got watered down because there's been like the D&D Beyond stuff you could get early if you had a master tier or whatever. Our buddy Phil had it behind the counter for us a couple weeks ago. So yeah, but yesterday was like the full on 5.5 or whatever we're gonna call it. I like 5.5. I think we're
I
settling on
yeah,
that.
I've been doing 2024. That's been getting like some traction. But I guess 5.5's like way takes up less characters in the title. So, I'll probably start
That's
thinking.
it's efficiency. And like if you let them have 2024, then like are you gonna buy 2026? Are
Well,
you gonna
there's
like it's
that, but
just
there's the technical part of like calling a file 5.5. You can't do that. So like
oh sure.
you can't name it that on your Windows computer. It doesn't
Mhm.
like the period. So yeah, but anyway, I don't think the fans are here to listen to our technical difficulties. They're going to listen to our epic adventures. And last night we had some fun. I had a fun session.
It was a good one.
Here's
It
what
was a
I
good one.
think one of the takeaways is I don't want to forget is that tool usage really what came in. And that doesn't sound exciting, but it really was as a player to be able to like use that part of our character. At first I thought, okay, we got up to level 3. So I picked to be an assassin rogue, and an assassin rogue gets a poisoner's kit. And we were given a mission to kill a thousand-tooth crocodile, which just visually is wonderful. But so we were thinking of ways to do that, and I thought, well, let's soften them up, right? We'll try to give them the poison condition, which then we found out that didn't quite work. But anyway, I was thinking like of using my poisoner's kit to try to make a poison so that we could like maybe get some bait animal, lace it with poison. We were thinking like a chicken or something, from like I was thinking of like Live and Let Die, the James Bond movie where he's down in the bayou and he has to like walk across the heads of the alligators. And I know alligators aren't crocodiles, but the yeah, so I was thinking of that sort of thing. And then ironically enough, you made a dungeon where there were chickens in the dungeon.
I mean, I didn't make the dungeon, but this is the first off the top of my head. I can't remember running another like published adventure where there were waterfowl in a cage. And they're I think ill-tempered is the description of them. But like you guys were like, if only we could find a chicken in this swamp. I was like, there's a chicken like three doors down. What the hell? This is kismet. This is weird.
There was a little bit of serendipity last night, but yeah, there was a time when I rolled double ones on two 20-sided dice. Like that's a
Uh-huh.
1 in 400 chance, so that was odd. But then the roll didn't count. But the odd things in dungeons, I ran 2 summers ago. I ran D&D for some kids at a summer camp. They were young kids, like third through fifth grade, and somebody was talking about lunchtime. So somebody was talking about McDonald's. So we incorporated a McDonald's into the cave. There was a cave
Mm.
and there was McDonald's. So they role played one guy being behind the counter at McDonald's and the other ones being demanding adventurers placing their orders, ridiculously absurd orders, Tyrannosaurus Rex burgers and all kinds of crazy stuff. But yeah, so the waterfall in the cave in the kind of like reminded me a little bit about the pop-up McDonald's in a cave from last summer. But
I mean, I don't care what age you are. That Gonzo weird stuff is yeah, is a crowd pleaser. It's always good. I fall into this trap a lot too of like I want a grounded world that makes sense, like verisimilitude. This is a fantasy world with a billion different species and magic. Like
Yeah, the magic part
crazy
can
stuff's happening all
explain
the
a lot
time.
of things away, right?
Yeah, so like a grounded version in grounded in that reality is Gonzo, right? Like there's, I don't know, a McDonald's in a subway station somewhere, right? Like it's that same
Yeah,
and there's a
right.
there's a
I
burger joint
mean,
serving ostrich from
well,
the other side of the planet. Like let's
there's a TV commercial right now, I think, of some celebrity athlete or something, and it's for Taco Bell. I saw it during the ball game, the football game on Sunday, and the guy says he's like he's driving, it's in his house, but he's driving through it as if he were at a drive-through Taco Bell orders. And then he says something about a tennis court, and the guy says, "You have a tennis court?" He's like, "I have a Taco Bell in my living room." And it's that kind of like weirdness. But anyway, yeah, it was good. So we did the thing with well, I thought about the poisoner's kit, which I actually did not do with that ability, that tool proficiency. But then Patrick, the other Patrick in the group, he's a paladin, and he has metalworking tools or smith's tools, right?
Smith's tools. Yeah.
So he decides that he wants to make a votive statue in the style of, or an image of, the reptilian god, because we're in this like lizard man like mound. We're in this settlement, which we find out more about later, but we're in this settlement where the lizard men are there, and so he decides he wants to make a votive statue because we were unable to persuade the religious caste of this lizard sect, this lizard village. And we had one of our missions was to be diplomats and try to like convince different aspects of the population to allow us to join their alliance, basically.
It's a good adventure. I made a video fairly recently about why Ghosts of Saltmarsh is like very underrated. And it's one of these anthology adventures where they took a bunch of old material and connected it. So it's very modular. You can hack and slash. I'm ready. I'm ready to throw out the book. I think that's the value of like a good adventure kind of is ready for itself to be obsolete. Like there were 3 weeks ago, you're like, "Are we pirates now? Or are we gonna go somewhere else?" I was like, "I'm ready for it. Like I got, we can do that. We can totally diverge from this book and go somewhere else with it." But this adventure in particular, Danger at Dunwater, I think is the official title,
Okay.
or was the official title. It's the title of the chapter. Um, it's it's very complex. It's a gigantic dungeon. I mean, it's a two-page spread and it's like very organic. It's not very easy for me to organize in my brain, right? Because it looks like a plant. It doesn't look like it's not geometric at all.
Yeah.
Weird twisting corridors that overlap and all sorts of weird stuff. And there's it's lizard folk, but there's factions within the lizard folk. They're making alliances with other species. There's like politics going on. You're there to figure out what they're doing because they've been collecting weapons. You actually sold them some of those weapons when you were flirting with being pirate smugglers. And the town wants to know, why is there an army of lizard folk over there? Are they coming for us? If they are, we want to be ready. If they're not, we don't want to piss them off and make them come for us.
Right.
So they sent you jabronis to figure out like what the deal is.
Jabroni. I love that.
And you did and you did a pretty masterful job over a couple weeks getting in there. Not there were some real bad rolls and some real good rolls. It's been a real swingy couple of there's double ones and someone got a 28 at level 3, which is incredible.
Yeah.
Um, so you got an audience with the queen, and she's like, "All right, there's two ways to prove yourself. You can go convince everybody that you're worth working with, or you can go kill Thousand Teeth the Devourer." Um, and I love stuff like that because it gives the player characters a chance to like distinguish who they are, and it gives the players a chance to like, "Hey, do you want a big ass boss fight right now, or do you want a social exploration session? You decide. I'll go get a cup of coffee. You
That's great. If
tell me
you
what's
know,
next.
that's if you're prepared for that, that's fantastic. And and that's the thing. I think when we talk about DM tips about lightly preparing because you don't know which way the session's going to go, right? So if you just spend a whole time like fleshing out the alligators, I'm sorry, the crocodile's lair and figuring out like, where you're going to have like a trap or an ambush or an encounter previous to soften up the party before the boss fight. If you put all that effort into it, and then we end up saying, "No, we want to go talk to the religious faction," and unsuccessfully, and accidentally go through their bedroom. So you know, you would have spent a lot of time as a DM on something that did not materialize and may not materialize. So it's important, from just like a human standpoint of budgeting one's time,
Hmm.
not to get too invested into one path and try to railroad the players down that one path. So kudos to you for keeping it like that so that those options are available. But that takes some alacrity, it takes some resilience of mind to be able to foresee that. It takes experience too. And I think that's why a lot of people watch these videos to kind of get
Yeah.
that idea of, where should I devote my effort, so.
And I think the answer is going to be different I mean, thank you. You're very kind. And I do, whatever. I've been doing this for a while, so I have experience. I've leveled up as a dungeon master over time by doing the thing, right? I didn't start here. And I mean, even I was like a little intimidated of like, there's a lot here. This might not run as smoothly as I would like. And there was more dungeon master loading moments last night of
Mm.
like, I don't have the bandwidth to granularly understand what's going on in each room.
Right.
I didn't have the capacity to do all of that and be able to hold it loosely enough to let it go because you guys could never explore. Like for me to put 54 rooms in my brain that would never get used, uh, I here's broad concepts of what the factions want, what their attitudes are. Here's like the main players. Here's like kind of neighborhoods, zones of what's going on. But
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening in room 42. I'm gonna take a minute to read, and that's
Yeah.
okay sometimes. Yeah.
We talked about that afterwards, and it was like, we were talking about different kinds of DM styles, and actually it was Patrick again who said something about, his experience, and so we all started relating our experience. But that's the value of the book, I think, especially with a good old dungeon crawl, and that's what we had. It was a
Mhm.
social dungeon crawl. We didn't get into any scraps, almost did with the high priests, but not quite. And it was, going room to room, having a book that has those little descriptions and has which objects are in there and are there any NPCs, that sort of thing. So for instance, we stumbled upon a kitchen and that kind of changed everything. So we
Yeah.
stumbled upon a storeroom with like some food hanging, like basically like a meat locker, where we found the waterfowl, the angry waterfowl that were still being kept alive. Like I was thinking like live frogs at an Asian market, that I was at yesterday, not far from our houses. And you can get live frogs. So they I don't, just as a
Not
so
that there's anything wrong with that, but that's not my
we
cup of
saw the
tea.
crawfish that the party had been carrying in from last week. So if you guys watched last week's video, at the end we tried to sleep 5 lizard men. None of them fell asleep. They were carrying a giant crawdaddy, and take this out of context and tell this to a person on the street, they'll be like, "What are you talking about?
Yes.
Lizard men, crawdaddy tried to cast a spell to sleep them." That's why I love D&D. So
Yes.
it doesn't translate in the outside world that much. But it's getting more popular.
Oh, for sure.
But at the end of that, you did have the cliffhanger, like there is a larger threat, dun dun dun, dot dot dot, blue script TNG to be continued. So yeah, so we found out that, you know, that's the reason we went to talk to the Queen to find out what this larger threat was. So it turns out that, you know, she's on board with allowing us to be part of the alliance. She's kind of convinced a little bit, but she wants to make sure that we prove ourselves to the population at large. Maybe, or maybe there's, you know, she wants to have a good argument as to why to let the smooth skins on board, the non-reptilian, non-aquatic species that we are, you know, what we are, you know, what can we offer, right? Especially if it's going to be like an aquatic underwater fight, it
Yeah,
might
the last
be.
line
Yeah.
I had, like, it was a big celebration at the end because you guys like cooked dinner and you won over pretty much everybody. The paladin presents his, like, you know, totemic statue that he like distilled iron out of swamp plants. I learned a lot actually in that process.
Yeah, I didn't know you could do that.
It was
Apparently
this
that's a Viking thing.
Yeah, cool. And like I don't care if the Vikings did it, like he did it last night. There's magic, baby. The Yeah, big celebrations going on, and then like the kindly bespectacled advisor, pretty much the one lizard folk who you can tell apart. Is like pats one of you guys on the back at the end. It's like you guys can breathe underwater, right? And like fade to black.
Yeah. Bum, bum,
Like,
bum,
oh,
bum.
what did we just agree to here?
What?
Um,
I
but
like the way you said it's like it was like the end of Jedi, you know, like
yeah.
that
Blah,
was
blah,
that.
blah, blah,
Yeah, that was
blah.
awesome. So we all started singing Nub Nub. So yeah, that was fun. That was good. The way you described what happened in the kitchen. So we went into
Mm.
the meat locker and then we go in the next room and there's a kitchen and Bertram picks up the knife and there's a moment of like tension in the air that you could cut with a knife, and then he just starts like preparing like onions or leeks or something, like starts doing his best Bobby Flay, and instead of flaying the occupants of the room, and he yeah, and then it becomes this like scene almost like you described as like rhythmic, you know, like a kind of a everybody gets into a groove, everybody finds something to do, and you're just meal preparation for 45 minutes and you know, like Patrick said, it's, you know, breaking bread is or eating a meal together is a great cross-cultural way to because you know everything eats, right? So
Mm. A
yeah.
different things too. There was a moment where like, should we eat this? Like, what is in this stew? Um,
Yeah, who is in this stew? Right?
who is in this stew?
As we
Yeah.
saw in the throne room, we saw mounted heads of various some sentient you know, things like hobgoblins, you know, things that might actually think and have societies. But we're no stranger to that in fiction. I mean, that's Star Wars all over. I mean, when you talked about the geese in the cage or the waterfowl in the cage, I was thinking of the scene from Mandalorian first episode
Mm.
where they show the little I know the name of those things. I can't remember, but you know, the Jabba the Hutt's like little pet, you
Yeah,
know,
I don't know what is
and
the
they're
little
yeah,
Rizzo
the
the Rat
little
guys, like
yeah, and
whatever
they're
they.
sit yeah, and they're sitting there like no, you know, and they see one of their own being roasted on a spit, and the other three are like, oh no, you know, so they know they're next. Yeah, Salacious Crumb is the name of the character.
Salacious Crumb. If I knew
Salacious
that, I had
Crumb.
forgotten. That's a good name.
He's the name of the character
Salacious
from
Crumb.
Jedi, but the species has a name too, and it just doesn't. It's not coming to me.
It's wild that that guy has a last name.
That makes it. That makes it. The last name makes it right.
Yeah.
You think of something diminutive, right? Like a crumb,
Mm-hmm.
but also
Mm-hmm.
something that's not terribly desirable either, right?
Right.
And
Right.
so that's a really nice description. Yeah,
It's
that's
a
a
good
really
name.
nice name. So yeah, so but we charmed the queen by rolling a one. So let's explain how that happened. So a series of events
Um,
happened. So we were led into the throne room. There were two children playing in the throne room. And I decide I'm going to use my performance ability, which I have a +7 in, I think it was a +7 or +5. Anyway, and do a little twirl. I have this pirate jacket that goes down to my ankles that I stole off of the pirate captain. And it's bright red, and so I'm identifiable, just like you said. That guy with the spectacles was identifiable to us. The lizard folk could identify me based on the red jacket and maybe little else. And so I decided to do like this pirouette, and I roll a nat one. So you just like, yeah, you face plant, but the kids love it. Like they
Mm,
just start howling, and you get up with like dirt on. I said, I'll get up with like dirt on my face or whatnot and just own it. And then the kids like run over and start playing. So that became a wonderful little thing. I'm very big fan of kids and dogs, right?
mm.
So like if you like, how do you keep your, how do I keep 8-year-olds from pillaging a village as soon as they enter it, right?
Yeah.
Make have a stake, have other kids playing and have maybe pets, animals, dogs, things. You're going to save the village because of not the human mayor who says you have to save the village, but because, oh, the poor dogs, like we got to save the village for the dogs,
Hmm.
so that kind
Hmm.
of thing. So
And
we have these kids in tow, and when we finally do meet the queen of the city, the queen, the queen reptile, lizard folk, she is enamored with us because we've got these kids. We're more likely to be on good terms with because the kids are reacting well to us. So I didn't realize, you told us later, there was a point system going on in the background.
yes, and like I slightly modified some things, but there is it's a good adventure because it's so different. Where it's like you're on a diplomatic mission, it can very quickly go sideways. There's different factions here. There's different ways to win them over theoretically, but it's open-ended. It's not just like you have to jump through this hoop and then this hoop and then this hoop. It's like how are you gonna like convince all these different pieces of the society that you're friendly and valuable. And the walking in with the kids to the queen is a big deal. And they're not necessarily an asset. I didn't make them too troublesome because there weren't a lot of opportunities, but like I don't know, they were like meddling with things. They were eating food that you guys were preparing, and one almost touched the stove, and um
They always touch this too.
so like there is, and it's funny. So we were talking at the end about like different styles of play, and like deep immersion I enjoy and is held as like the highest standard, I think, because actual play culture and it's the most entertaining to watch. But I say it all the time. I run a pretty like metagamey, transparent. Like I want everyone to stay true to the character, and I push people to do that. But I allow a lot of table talk. I don't use a dungeon master screen. Once it was just about complete, I revealed like, okay, here's the superstructure of the game that's operating behind the scenes that you, if I told you about first, you would behave very differently and maybe to get too metagamey, but like I will show you what I'm doing. I'm the magician who tells you the trick at the end, which some people hate. Like that's not for everybody. But that's my style of play because I then we like dissect it and figure out better ways to do it. And yeah, it's interesting for me. And it's a we're in a game shop. There's 40 other people around. There's lots of interruptions. Someone will like walk up and be like, "What are you guys doing?" in the middle of like a grand soliloquy. It's a different environment.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
so it lends itself to that more open-ended conversation-y thing. And it's satisfying to do multiple things, right? Like we still had some pretty powerful role play moments because you guys are on a social mission. As you said, you can't tell a lot of them apart. In fact, you guys went up to the people that you cast sleep on were in the mess hall, and you went up and tried to like, hey, what's going on? What are you guys up to? How can we help? Trying to like persuade them, win them over. It's like, yeah, we brought you here. You tried to cast sleep on us 6 hours
Oh
ago. Like, what do
yeah. It's like that
you?
guy. It's like that guy you met 2 years ago, and he remembers you, but you don't remember him,
Oh
or you don't
God,
remember
yes.
from where. Like you're like your face is familiar, but you don't remember exactly
Yes.
where. And
Yes.
especially we're in a public job, and yeah,
Yes.
it's like that. It's like, oh man, do I keep trying to fake this through, or do I just say like, dude, I don't remember. Like,
Yeah, God, especially
and
retail, like you in like service. We both
yeah,
worked in like different places where it's just like defaults to friendly familiarity. And then once in a while you're like, do I know you? Like,
I didn't
have
know
we
this dude.
have we? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't remember. In the
Um
meantime, like, especially if you're friendly, like you're like, I know I've had a conversation with this dude because he's bringing up specific things.
right,
But
right.
I don't
That's
remember the conversation, you know?
and
But
then
here's
like at a whatever. Yeah.
here's the other thing though you were talking about at the table was showing the magic trick, right? Which is great for this kind of video because DMs people who want to be DMs are going to watch this hopefully and get some insight. But also you're playing with a bunch of DMs, right? So you're playing with
Yeah,
people who've run games before, right?
yeah.
So all of us, except I'm not sure about Bertram, but but I know for a fact that Patrick has said he's run. I know my friend Craig, who joined the table for the first time, he's run many. He's got a lot of experience. Obviously I do, you do, and I don't know if Mike has though. Mike said but Mike wasn't there last night.
No, I
I
can
could play
so
her.
it's half the reason I am so like willing to part the kimono, as it were, is like all of my games or most of my games are actually secretly like Dungeon Master incubators, right? I'm trying to also make it less intimidating. Just like, here's the trick. It's not that hard. Like, and also like, I didn't know that was gonna happen. Like, I'm not omniscient. It's not, I'm also only human back here and I make mistakes and we'll ask you to look things up or whatever the hell. So no,
Well,
Mike is the newest, and it's funny. Mike is one of the most like committed, talented players at the table. But he has not run yet. I'm working on it.
yeah, but that's the thing. We're in unique circumstances now. We've run 3 sessions since the book came out, since we've had the books, but
Mm,
really only two since we've had a chance to review the books
mm.
because it just coincided. Tuesday night was the first day. That happened on a Tuesday when we bought the book. We had it in our hot little hands, but we didn't implement it. So these last 2 sessions we have, and so we're talking about the rules. We're finding out, what do tools do? What do tool proficiencies allow you to do? Sometimes you need it just to do a thing. And then
Mhm.
other times you need to roll a DC check just to see if you can do the thing that you can do with that thing. So without being ambiguous, like if you want to make simple poison with a poisoner's kit, then you have to roll DC 10 just to succeed. And as you said, it takes time.
Yes.
Um, so that was another reason that I didn't go with that. But and it took a lot of time for Patrick's character with his paladin with the smith tools
Yep.
to make that little votive statue. And he had to roll to see how good quality it was. And he rolled like a 13, so it resembled it, but it wasn't a work of art, like it was, so it was that was pretty cool. That was really neat. I like the way that worked. And being able
People
to do that,
want
because when's the last time you talked about that, like, or thought
exactly.
about that? Like, when's the last time calligraphy tools came into play? Um,
And it's yeah, people want crafting. And if it's on my character sheet, it better be useful. Like, why do I have smith's tools if I'm never going to use them, right? Can I make a sword? Yes, you can, but it costs 1,000 gold in 3 weeks, and like, oh, so I'm never going to make a sword, huh? So the new player's handbook does some to address it, make things useful. Maybe not as much as some people would want out of the gate. I we're playing a game that's only a third of the way out right now too. Like, I am hopeful that the Dungeon Master's Guide has maybe more on the crafting side of things, but
right.
we'll find out in a couple months. Um, but we're in. I keep saying we're in this like super precision. I don't even know if I'm in Forgotten Realms of Greyhawk right now. There's like certain questions where I'm like, here's the two answers, because I'm hoping we're transitioning to Greyhawk because they're going to support it in the DMG. But like, there's a Forgotten Realms guide coming out now, so maybe you are here. Um, And the same thing with like rule sets. Hey, okay, I'm gonna let this is what let's find out what the poisoner's kit says it does in the book. I'm gonna take it from there for now. All right, DC tend to make basic poison. You're trying to impart the poison condition, which seems like a perfectly reasonable thing to do with poison. So, okay, I have a higher DC in my mind. If you take the time and the effort to do it, if you get over that line, at it, like I do gradated DCs a lot, which is not necessarily in the book. It's not
Yeah.
against the rules, but like, all right, you hit a DC 10, you get this. You hit a DC 15, you get this. I do that a lot
Yeah.
with knowledge checks, and with the social situations too, right? It's not just like
Sure.
some situations are not pass fail,
It's
right?
not pass fail. It's a scale.
I'm
It's
talking
like
to
getting
this
a grade.
guy. If I win, he's my best friend. If I go one lower than that, he's going to attack me. It's like, there's bands, right? With those, and you were in that middle band with the shamans. The each roll, like you were just squeaking by a couple times from like not fighting these guys, but like you weren't winning them over either.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I said like, okay, if you roll DC whatever, I was like 15, 16, 17.
Yeah.
Um,
Bertram kept rolling like 13s, 10s, 11s, like right in the
yes,
middle. And it was
yes,
just, that makes the DM's job harder because
it does.
it's not a clear fail, it's not a clear success. So what do you do, right?
Yeah,
And other systems have some allowances for that. For instance, the Star Wars role-playing game has kind of consequence dice. I forget what they call them, but like you can succeed, but there is a consequence or um like say you're trying to pick a lock. You pick the lock, but you set off an alarm.
right.
That kind of thing, right? So yeah.
Right. Yeah. And in a perfect world, you want to drive the story forward. In a conversation, it's trickier sometimes because if it's like, I mean, I straight up like the guy told you to fuck off.
Yeah.
But like they were,
And then we walked into his bedroom
yeah,
trying to get
exactly.
out because
So now,
it's like, let's go explore. And all right, I guess so. And then he's like, I said, get out.
yeah, like
Don't
what?
keep going through my stuff.
Yeah. I was like, all right, and then like, and so sometimes the consequence is it affects the next check, right? So it's all right, DC's gone up, or now you have disadvantage talking to this guy, and it's in 5e 5-5, right? There's like the NPCs have an attitude, and that affects the dice. Um, but again, I think allowing yourself to like impart a little more gradation is always a good move as a dungeon master.
Well, this is a good thing. Okay, so this is a good point. The dice, everybody loves to roll dice, but the dice aren't always necessary, right? So
Mhm.
don't so as a DM, if you want the action to continue, don't call for a roll, right? So don't do it. Just let it go, right? Like everything doesn't have to be a roll. And there's other ways to determine outcomes than rolling dice. Rolling dice are extremely useful for things that maybe are random, but and or something that you do want to leave up to fate. But that's not the only way to do it, right? So like, you can determine based on you can even make it like just a role playing thing, like based on what you say, the words that you say, that's what's going to, determine whether or not this person, you know, like, or you can even make it like a quiz, which is brutal, but you could be like, okay, if you can say the name of the queen properly,
Uh-huh.
if you can remember the name of the monster, right? If
Mhm.
you can remember the name of our god, so like you could do that kind of stuff just for fun, and then and then I'm the kind of DM, I always have a back, there's always a trap door, or there's always an alternate route out of the room. So
Mhm.
like, you know even in combat, I don't really have any forced combats. I've run one shot, like Adventure League modules with, they had 3 combats ready to go, and they socialed out of them. They either ended it around them, or they found a way to like make peace, and that's legit. I'm cool with that. You know, I'm not going to force you to fight the boss if you decide that you're going to like charm him or, you know, or do something else. I love it. That's the great thing about the game, the versatility of it, you know. And
Yeah, and I think that's one of the first ways a dungeon master, well, often one of the earlier like level ups that you do. In the beginning you invest so much time learning how to interpret the rules that you interpret everything through the rules because you're concerned about what skill is that, right? That feels like the question you have to answer, and so that's the rubric that you judge everything. But then you realize that only comes into play when there's a question, right? Like it's if a character, I mean, social is the easiest example, but like if a character is doing a thing that would work, it works. That can be the dice don't have to come out until it's a question of success or failure, right? Like I'll say a lot of the time, just because it sounds funny to me, no, like okay, you do that, like just like confirmation, like that happens, yes, because a lot of players are expecting to roll. I mean, you rolled those two nat ones. You rolled because no, well, I called for a roll. I did call for it, but I was talking to someone else, and again, it's loud. There's a lot of distractions. There's miscommunication happens a lot in that room. So you rolled. It was like, woo, I'm glad that was not you
yeah,
doing
roll
our
with
plan.
advantage and yeah, roll 2 1.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
expecting that.
But yeah, you don't need to call for a die roll if the conclusion is known. You don't have to bring dice into it until it's a question. And if you're not prepared for success and or failure, right? Because the opposite is also true. If the player's attempting a thing that isn't possible to do. Like you can't
Right.
do that doesn't adhere to the laws of this world, right? Like the physics of this world. The king is not going to abdicate his throne because some level 3 idiot came in and said it. Like,
Yeah,
no, you
there's
don't
not
have
a
a
1 in 20 chance of doing everything.
exactly. Because like it feels, oh, but I'm a superhero character. It's like, well, but by that measure, any commoner can walk in and have a 5% chance of
Doing anything.
doing anything. It's like
Yeah.
that's not how the game works, or that's not the game I want to play. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. I mean, even in a high magic situation, there are still things that are going to be insurmountable. Yeah. That's
Right.
good. That's a good point. Yeah. But no, all in all, I thought it was a great session. I really had a lot of fun. I thought that yeah, that was the highlight for me was using the tools, but also the descriptions. And again, we didn't have one single combat in this session, and it was a blast. And
Yeah,
it could
those are
have been a boss
some of
fight.
my favorites. Some of my favorites. And then combat feels great when you haven't done it for a while.
That's right. That's right. And we got to level up. So just for anybody who's actually following along with the plot line, we're all gonna level up to level 4. And so I was looking through the feats and for my rogue, and I was thinking like there's a couple things you could do. I already got my subclass for my rogue. So I could just take the ability score, throw 2 points in something, and get a +1, you know, added to whatever, and do that. That's I'm strongly leaning towards that actually. I started looking at the feats. There wasn't one that really like grabbed me, so I'm gonna have to look at those a little bit more, but that'll be good research this week, and I'll probably end up doing a couple videos about the different feats, especially for the rogue class. And then I thought maybe I should multi-class. And
Hmm.
uh you know, if you multi-class the fighter, you end up getting like some weapon proficiency, you get second wind, you get um you know, some nice combat things, you get you can wear medium armor. But I have to read the rules on that too. So if I'm wearing medium armor, does that affect my stealth and you know that kind of stuff? So I have to figure all that out and see if anything has changed from the 2014 rules to the 2024 rules. And yeah, so there's a lot, you know, there's a lot of things in motion. So leveling up is like a research project for me right now. You know, it's not just like, oh, this is the next logical thing to do. There is lots of possibilities. And and then you are saying, you know, as a DM, you're like, well, you know, you want to reskin your character because
Hmm.
these are new rules. You want to try something different, you know, go for it. And that's really cool too, because that's kind of fun. So like if you did feel like you kind of went down a dead end or you explored enough on a certain like subclass path, you could like back up a step or two and just say, okay, now I want to be an arcane trickster instead of an assassin or that sort of thing, just so that we can like learn all the new rules. And I think that's really cool. So we learn them over the course of weeks instead of months.
Right. And that's another benefit of like the fast and loose style of whatever, the way I'm running this game in particular. There's an opportunity cost of like, well, my character's like totally different now. Like those important implications of my backstory that made me a certain way don't really hold water anymore. You can hand wave that and like, okay, like it's a different style. It's not like it's not for everyone and it's not for every game. It's not for every session.
Right.
But like, dude, right now we're playing two games at once, and one of them's not finished yet, and it's constantly getting updated and errata. So like, we're in this really weird transitional phase. So instead of pretending that everything's solid and perfect, I'm comfortable in the ambiguity and like analyzing it together. It's just it's a learning process, right?
Right.
Right now, especially, but kind of always.
But that's the fun. I think that's the fun of it. So the game is fun, but the learning is fun too. If you don't like books, you don't like reading, you can still play this game. But that's an enjoyable element of the game as well. And sifting through the artwork and the descriptions and all of the fun stuff that writers get to do. Speaking of which, your book, we just saw your proof last night of your
It's
book.
it's
So the
it's
compendium,
coming.
yeah,
It's an object that exists in the world. I'm learning a lot about the publishing process because I've never published a book before. I changed a few tiny things, pushed page numbers closer to the margins, and they're like, "Cool, you need to proof it again." I was like, "Fuck!" So it is currently waiting for approval from the printer. They're going to print the thing. They'll send it to me. I give it the okay, and then I don't know, couple weeks. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, it'll be out for sale. You can get the PDF right now. It is out in the world. The Kickstarter is fulfilled. You can grab the Game Master's Compendium of Explosive Creation today on the Dungeon Masters Guild. But pretty soon, print on demand will also be available if you want a physical copy. It's coming.
I definitely want a physical copy, and I'll put the link to the PDF in the description below. So
Appreciate.
thanks everybody for joining us, and see you next week.
Bye.